In today's episode, the Montego Estate. Hello and welcome to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel. And in today's episode, like I say, we're looking at the not the Austin Montego, just the Montego Estate in this all-range brochure that we've been looking at. We'll come to that in a moment though. But for Quarterlight, we look at car brochures from around the world for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s, and sometimes beyond those years as well. So when you watch the episode, please do consider subscribing. Now, a little bit of thing for our regulars. I think the main thing that's always come back as, I won't say a criticism, but sort of like a note from our regulars is sometimes the sound isn't as good as it could be. We've always used this blue microphone, which I've had since the very first day of filming Quarterlight and car brochures. This was a recommended microphone. It's never been as good as I hoped it would be, even though it wasn't the cheapest microphone you could get, sort of like a mid-range mic. And I was looking, because a few people say maybe that's the next thing to improve, so I have been looking around to buy another one. Then I thought, hold on, wait a minute. For my outside recordings, I use this DJI mic, and it's always been great for outside recording, so maybe try it here. I didn't know I could actually attach it to the home computer, but I'm trying it today. Why I'm mentioning all this really is let me know if the sound is any better. And I'm saying that for more sort of your headphone wearing people who can hear maybe a little bit more noises than people just watching, for example, on a TV. But anyway, let me know, and I can either keep this option, go back to my original blue mic, or maybe you can recommend something else, but let me know. Anyway, back to the program, Montego. Let's turn our attention to that. So firstly, this is the brochure that we've been looking at, Rover, Today's Cars, July to October 1993. We've looked at we looked at all the Rover badged vehicles, put it that way. Last model we looked at was the Rover Metro, which at this time Rover kindly gave the Rover badge to the Metro and renamed it the Rover Metro because, of course, Austin has been axed in its name. Many people thought maybe it was the Mini that was coming back now, which of course would make very much logical sense, wouldn't it? But no, the Montego is still around. No, we've decided we're not going to allow that to have the Rover badge. It's just the Montego. But strangely at this time, the saloon has now gone. So the saloon went sort of like early 93. Like I said, this is July, October 93. So all that we've got is the estate version of the Montego still being sold. Remember, the Rover 600, which should have been the logical car to have in that sort of class as an estate, never got the estate. So we're holding on to that Montego estate, even though it's been shunted to the back of the brochure, not given a Rover badge. So let's have a look at that model now. So here it is then, the Montego and Estate. I always found that the Montego was best looking in estate or wagon form, actually. I always thought it just looked right as an estate. So I'm not really that worried that it's still hanging around. And I'm sure there were some bargain prices out there. And like I say, there isn't really an equivalent estate at the moment of this size in the Rover stable. But yeah, they never gave it the Rover badge, so it was never called the Rover Montego officially, although the badge almost looked like a Rover badge, but wasn't. So this is quite simply called the Montego, in a way that the Austin Princess wasn't called the Austin Princess, it was just the Princess. Anyway, we'll read the text and we'll come back to these lovely images. So it describes the Montego as spacious, practical, value for money. Montego Estates, you'll have the very best of both worlds. Distinctive, streamlined elegance, and the capacity to simply eat up the load. If economy is one of your main concerns, then a Montego Turbo Diesel estate is the one for you. Hailed as class leaders in economy, they're also responsive to drive and remarkably quiet too. State-of-the-art diesel technology has been employed to give you fuel consumption that will result in substantial savings over long distances and high mileages, with up to 68.6 mpg, which is fantastic. I mean, it's a great car to have as a diesel estate. I always thought was a great combination. I did actually look when I was much younger at a diesel Montego Estate. I think it was a Countryman on the second-hand market, and I looked at the insurance rates, and the insurance rates were ridiculously higher than anything else, so it put me off, particularly as I didn't need a diesel, so I weren't doing high mileages, so there was no savings for me. But I always thought that was a little bit strange. But anyway, let's move down. It continues to say 68.6 mpg at a constant 56 miles per hour and up to 50.5 mpg on the urban cycle. In the interests of the environment, a recent engineering advice is the introduction of exhaust gas recirculation on all Montego Turbo Diesel models. Under the control of a sophisticated engine management system, a proportion of the exhaust gases is brought back into the inlet manifold, burning more of the waste gases and reducing exhaust emissions. If you want to enjoy the smooth and flexible response of a 2-litre petrol fuel-injected performance with a close ratio transmission, it's more comfortable than ever with the arrival of the new 2-litre I Clubman estate, keenly priced but also generously equipped. Or you can choose the extra luxury of the Montego 2-litre LXI or the prestigious Countryman estates. Naturally, a state-of-the-art 3-way controlled exhaust catalyst now comes as standard on all petrol models currently in production. The 3-way control catalyst fitted to the 2-litre models is particularly advanced because the mixture strength is monitored and adjusted all the time in order to keep exhaust emissions to a minimum. An engine so intelligent that it virtually thinks for itself. And then we're given some nice quotes. This one doesn't appear to tell us what it's from, but the phenomenal Montego estates have everything you could need: capacious carrying power, class-beating economy, and superb value for money. And another quote, and interestingly, all the other quotes in this brochure have been named. Rather oddly, these haven't. It's another quote here from somewhere. From the well-equipped Clubman to the special ambience of the Countryman, with its wood veneer door inserts and leather-trimmed steering wheel, you won't lack for luxury in the Montego estate. Then we get an interior image, and this is the Countryman estate. Interestingly, the steering wheel, the centre, doesn't have any badging on there whatsoever, which looks very odd, doesn't it? Countryman, I always thought was the one to get. We got a little bit of wood on the door there, almost making you think maybe it should have had the Rover badge on there, but the dashboard's certainly showing its age and looking very plasticky. By this time, we also got an electric slide tilt glass sunroof, standard on all estates except for that base Clubman. And this is your image of your Countryman, again with those roof rails on the roof there. This one in black. I always thought the green was always a nice colour for these. Anyway, we get another lovely colour with this image. This is your LXI. Red inserts in the bumpers obviously means a little bit sporty. Do like these alloy wheels. They do suit the Montego very well, although they were an optional extra fitment. And there is that practical rear end. Like I say, I always thought the Montego really suited being the estate. One of the few cars where I think the estate actually looked more attractive than the saloon counterpart. We also again get those nice practical estate roof rails. So turn the page, it continues with the same sort of idea, a bit more text, another unknown quotes, or a couple of unknown quotes, and of course your typical car brochure image, the inside of the tailgate there with random things inside. We'll come back to those images. Let's start with the text. It starts by telling us to take a seat in the Montego Estate, and you'll wonder at the spacious quality of the interior. The generous legroom and headroom give you plenty of room to stretch out in comfort, even if you're on the tall side, and 7-seater capacity is available if you want it from the Montego's clever occasional rear-facing seat or child seat. So I'm surprised they're still offering that. It's a little bit of a tiny rear-facing seat, which doesn't look the safest place to put a child really. But anyway, let's continue. With the rear seats folded down, you've got over 57 cubic foot of cargo room, plus a conveniently low sill to make loading easier, and the ability to carry additional 220 pounds on the aerodynamic integral roof rack. You'll travel in style too. The Montego Clubman Estates, for example, offer simply outstanding value for money, with a glass sunroof and electronic stereo radio stereo cassette player with 4 speakers. And now they're more stylish than ever with a new sports crayons seat trim. The Montego LX Estates give you a wealth of further refinements, including electric front windows, central locking and a power sunroof. At the top of the range, there's the prestigious Montego Countryman Estate. Take your place at the leather-bound steering wheel and enjoy the luxurious atmosphere. The burr walnut veneer, the elegant Countryman tweed, the ambience unique to Rover. So we're still saying, your burr walnut like a Rover, but we're not badging it as a Rover. Obviously, that was a step too far. Anyway, let's have a look at those quotes. So more quotes now, again unnamed. I'm not sure, maybe it's just Rover themselves giving these quotes. Strange that all the other quotes are named for the other cars. Maybe at this late stage there weren't any really good quotes to find in the press. But it starts by telling us the accommodation both for passengers and luggage is outstanding. All models have the versatile 60-40 split folding rear seat, plus an aerodynamically integrated roof rack that can take a 220 pound maximum load. And then the last quote, the Montego Estate is great to drive in both turbo diesel and fuel injected petrol 2-litre form. The refinement of the turbo diesel, even at 70 miles per hour, is extraordinary. So here is your 2-litre D Clubman Estate. So the base model, but very well equipped for the base model. We can just see how it's badged there. So Montego 2.0 D Clubman is how that's badged. Little turbo badge lower down there too. Here is your LXI. Nice view from the top, kind of like showing it's not just roof boards you're getting, you are getting a proper roof rack there. And then here is your fancy rear seat. So that would have been standard on your top of the range Countryman, option on all the other models. Strange idea at this late time in the 90s. There were better options if you wanted a 7-seater, of course. Lots of people carriers, MPVs, minivans, etc. around at this time. So yeah, a bit of a strange one. I don't think that was the safest place to stick your child. Anyway, looking at other images, your top of the range Countryman Estate there, showing those alloy wheels, but it was, the alloy wheels were even an option on the top model. You didn't get those as standard, but I think they really suited it and was possibly worth paying that little extra to get them. And then finally another Countryman model with the hatch up. Very odd bits and pieces thrown in the back there. A saddle and riding boots. It's always kind of like implied, not just in the 90s, but the 80s, 70s, even the 70s, early 70s. It was also always implied if you had an estate or a wagon, you were somehow also riding horses. Obviously, that would have been rarely the case, but they like to throw those in the back. So yeah, strangely no proper quotes in this for the Montego. Like I say, it may have been because it was late and there weren't any recent good quotes that they could find. It was kind of like, well, it was kind of like a bit of a forgotten car by this stage, really. I guess it was only if you was walking into your Rover dealership and you was trying to find an estate, and this is all that they really had to show you. So yeah, it would have sold on price, of course, at this stage. I'm sure you could have got some fantastic options and some fantastic deals on these late models where you could possibly have walked away with the top of the range model with, who knows, they may have thrown those alloy wheels in as a bit of a bonus to move them on. So no proper quotes, but I did find quite a nice quote from What Car actually in its final year of the Montego. It said, Austin Rovers once great white hope. Montego matured into a very decent car, but nobody noticed. I think that really rather nicely sums up this model. So the models themselves comprised of 3 diesels and 3 petrols essentially. So the 2-litre D Clubman was your base model diesel. Your 2-litre D LX was your middle diesel model, and then the top of the range 2-litre diesel Countryman, and then a similar sort of spec levels, pretty much identical spec levels really for the petrol model equivalent. So a 2-litre I Clubman, 2-litre LXI, and then your top of the range 2-litre I Countryman. So very nice that you could choose either a 2-litre petrol or a 2-litre diesel and then just pick which spec level and how much you wanted to pay essentially. And just as, because I kind of like mentioned it, there are your insurance groupings, which like I say, I always thought was high at the time. So your base model was a group 11 insurance in the UK. Obviously this will only make sense if you remember this time in the UK. The middle model, the LX, was an 11, and then your Countryman was a 12, so 1 model extra for that top of the range Countryman. At the time I didn't think it was worth spending that much on them. They seemed high at the time. I think the scale at this time was from 1 to 20, so a little bit above average from when you compared it to the other models, as in cars from other manufacturers. Now, I don't know if anyone's interested in estate car performance figures, but I'll throw them in there, why not? So your base 2-litre diesel Clubman was doing a 0 to 60 in 30 seconds, top speed of 100 miles per hour. In fact, that's what the figures were for all the models in the diesel range. Sounds slow, but I don't think that was too bad actually for what it was as a diesel. And then the petrol, obviously a lot quicker, 0 to 60, 10.2 seconds, top speed of 109. Like I said, I don't think those figures are horrendous for a very old design. So there we go, the lovely Montego. I'm sure it represented good value for money at this stage. Would have you have bought one? Did you buy one? Did you have one as a used car? Just in the comments, love hearing all your comments, good, bad or indifferent. Some very knowledgeable people out there. So next week, Maestro, the other long in the tooth, we're still trying to flog it, model in the Rover range, but we're not going to give it the Rover badge because we're going to get rid of it very soon. But the Maestro range was very limited at this time. So those are like your bargain basement car in the Rover dealership. I'm sure there was fantastic deals on those. And interestingly with this brochure, it shows the Maestros. Turn the page, it then shows the Maestro vans. So just to show you that they didn't think a lot of the Maestro at this time, because usually the vans were kept in a separate brochure, so it didn't kind of like devalue your nice hatchback, but they don't care at this time, so they're showing the Maestros and the Maestro vans all lumped together, very oddly. Anyway, enough waffle. We'll wrap this one up by saying thank you so much for watching today's episode and the Montego Estates. If you've not done already, please do consider subscribing. It is all completely free. You'll never be charged to become a subscriber. And of course, it keeps you in touch with the channel. We're doing at least 3 episodes a week. Like I said, next week, Maestros. But until then, please take care. We'll see you again very soon. All the best and goodbye.